The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, is due to give a major speech this morning, which will bring you live at 9 o'clock. We're expecting her to talk more about cutting the budget and saving money and that kind of thing. So who better to talk about this now than the Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride? We'll get onto that in a second, but I want to begin by asking you if you've ever made a mistake letting out a property.
No.
OK. Chancellor Rachel Reeves looks like she has made a mistake letting out a property. Your opposite number. Do you think she should stay in her job?
I think there should be a proper investigation into what has happened, but the Prime Minister has ruled that out. There was a quick exchange of letters last night to that effect, and I don't think that's appropriate, given that the Prime Minister has always said, stood on the steps of number 10 when he was first elected, that integrity and dignity in office and so on was right at the heart of what he was all about, and I don't think that fits with that, and I don't think it's good enough simply to try and brush it under the carpet in the way that he is. And given where we are at the moment and that there's going to be no proper investigation, I think he needs to do the right thing and accept that her position is not tenable.
Because it's not dissimilar to the Angela Rayner situation, property situation, perhaps missed a couple of details, and she's now no longer in the cabinet, no longer the Deputy Prime Minister. So do you think that Rachel Reeves' position is untenable then?
Well, I think in the absence of a proper investigation to get to the bottom of precisely what has happened, then absolutely I do. And as you say, we've had the Angela Rayner situation, which was a failure to pay tax on the purchase of a second home. All of this is happening, Matt, at a time where families up and down our country are really struggling. And they're struggling because this government is taking the wrong choices around the economy and people are suffering the consequence in terms of particularly higher taxes. And I don't think it's acceptable. As the Prime Minister said in the past, if you're a lawmaker, you should be in respect of the law. You should respect the law and abide by the law if you're making the law, was basically the point that he was making. And I think that's the maxim that we should be looking at this at the moment.
Let's talk about the economy, because this is what Kemi Badenoch is going to be discussing later on in her speech. Do you think the Conservatives yet have credibility when it comes to talking about the economy?
So I think that we do, but I think we also have...
Based on what?
Well, based on, for example, the speech that I gave at our conference, where I said two really important things. One was that we would be making serious savings across government, £47 billion, including £23 billion from the welfare budget, but equally that must be used responsibly to bring down the deficit, to bear down on the debt, because we're borrowing far too much money, but allowing space also for tax deductions or reductions, so that things like, for example, stamp duty on property, abolishing that for first primary residences and so on. So I think we have shown a very credible way through, at the same time as the Labour Party is messing up on the economy, and Nigel Farage and Reform are basically just peddling fantasy economics. None of their offering really has a plan to back it up.
You'll be well aware that the growth figures this year are positive. You'll be also well aware that in the last half of 2023, the Conservatives took the economy into a recession. So who's better at running growth?
Well, OK, so let's just deal with both those points. Growth, actually per capita, per person, which is the measure that matters, because that is what makes people better off on average across the country, is actually at the second lowest in the G7 at the moment, according to the IMF. And next year, they're forecasting it will be the lowest performance.
You also know that these forecasts change quite often.
Well, they do, but
we never quite hit the nail on the head.
You've said, look, growth is X, and that's based on...
Well, I was looking at the current figures and previous. I wasn't looking at the forecast. But nevertheless, when it comes to credibility, you took the country into a recession in that last half of 2023.
So we had to grapple with things like COVID. We had to grapple with things like the huge inflation that was imported to us as a result of the Ukraine war. On the day of the general election, bear in mind, we had the fastest growth in the G7, near record levels of employment, near record low levels of unemployment, and we had brought inflation down to bang on target at 2%. It's running at almost double that now. And to get back to our friends at the IMF, they are saying this year we will have the highest inflation in the G7 and the same next year. And that's part of why people are feeling so hard up.
They're your friends when they say what you want. They weren't necessarily your friends when you were in government questioning their forecast. Fair point, though. Nevertheless, when you talk about making these huge cuts to the welfare budget, it sounds like austerity all over again. Is that what you're going for?
No, because we are the party that is about work, and we have a spiralling welfare budget, far too many people going on to these long-term sickness, disability benefits,
Which again,
who would be able
it does
to work.
predate the current government, as you're well aware.
Yeah, and we were getting on top of that rise. So I had brought through fundamental reforms, actually, which narrowed the gateway onto those benefits, saved £5 billion, and the OBR were saying, the independent forecaster, that would mean getting on to 450,000 fewer people going onto those benefits. Now, Labour scrapped all that, then came up with their own alternative, which was not realistic, didn't get through the Commons because there was a revolt by the backbenchers and so on. So they have shown no capacity to take, no backbone to take the tough decisions that you need to take if you're going to start getting our economy really moving.
Yeah, sounds like no backbone is becoming a bit of a mantra of yours and Kemi Badenoch's. That seems to keep coming up.
Well, because I think I think a lot of people would agree with it, Matt. I mean, when it comes to if you go to the electorate at an election, you say you're not going to put taxes up left, right, and centre, then you do that. If you say afterwards, oh, that's the end of it, we're not going to come back for more, and as seems increasingly very, very likely, you're going to do just that.
The budget's a month away. We'll find out when the budget happens.
In a month, then I think people will come to those kind of conclusions. You know, he stood and defended Peter Mandelson, and he stood and defended Angela Rayner. He was pushed. You know, he wouldn't give us a national inquiry into grooming gangs.
Yeah.
This is a Prime Minister that doesn't have the backbone. He only acts when he's forced to act.
Just very quickly, it's hard not to draw the conclusion that the Conservatives don't believe in climate change when you want to cut all net zero budget. You want to save money on net zero. We've just had the warmest summer recorded in the UK. We've just seen Hurricane Melissa storm across Jamaica, one of the strongest hurricanes ever in the Atlantic. We see Boris Johnson saying you will not win by bashing the green agenda. John Major says the same, Theresa May says the same. Yet in your money-saving measures, you want to get rid of all net zero spending. Are you climate change deniers in the Conservative Party?
No, not at all. And we have a proud record as a country of both growing the economy at the same time as reducing carbon far more effectively.
You stop spending money on tackling
than many other countries. But there needs to be a balance here. We are responsible for about 1% of carbon emissions globally. So we are not that country that's going to shift the dial massively one way or another.
We have to lead by example, though, don't we?
Well, yeah, but we also have to run an economy that is viable, that we live within our means, we provide for citizens up and down our country so that they have a standard of living and a quality of living, but that we have to have businesses that have energy costs that are not 5 times what they are in America at the moment, in Canada 7 times what they are.
Do you agree with drill, baby, drill then? Is that what you would do?
I think our approach to hydrocarbons is wrong in this country. So if you take the North Sea, I think we're destroying potentially hundreds of thousands of jobs by choking off exploration and extraction. We're also still using gas, but we're getting it from elsewhere, liquid natural gas coming into the country, which has 4 times the carbon footprint of taking it out of the North Sea. We've got the Norwegians at the same time taking that oil and gas from the same basin, while this government is actually winding that down. We don't think that's the right approach. And the other point is energy security. We've got to get this energy from somewhere. And it's much better to get it from our own shores than it is to get it from people like Vladimir Putin and others.
Yes, which we see on the front page of the FT, the Russian oil is being bought by India in great swathes. But seriously, when you've got 3 former Conservative Prime Ministers saying you're not going to win with this idea of bashing climate change, of bashing net zero, then surely you've got to listen to what they say.
So, look, there'll be a variety of opinions on this, but we're very clear, and Kemi is very clear.
That's 3 Prime Ministers' opinions.
Well,
I mean, that's not just any old opinion, is it?
That's fine. There will be all sorts of different opinions on this matter, but I think the principal point is a very strong point, which is that as a country, we have far too high energy costs, and part of getting that down is taking a more balanced approach to some of the issues around net zero. That does not mean, of course, that we're not absolutely foursquare between around supporting the environment. We absolutely are. But we have to get this in balance. People are paying far too much on their energy bills at the moment. Businesses are shackled by these very high energy costs.
Yes.
The businesses of the future, Matt, are going to be things like AI, data centres.
Yeah.
They consume vast amounts of electricity. We've got to get those prices down.
People will tell you that sustainable energy, wind power, potentially nuclear fusion one day, that's going to be the cheapest energy.
Yeah, look, if you take somebody's household bill at the moment, it's loaded up with subsidy costs and The costs are very significant.
I could carry on this debate a lot
Yeah.
longer. I'm afraid we are to time. But Mel Stride, good to see you. Thank you
Nice to
very
see you.
much.